is Mark and Charity Mornings.
Mark and Charity Coffee Podcast for Thursday, November 4th, Belleville, Ontario, Canada. We had Carey Durant on the podcast, episode 17, raising money at a grassroots level for minor hockey here in the Quinte region of Ontario.
Great guy.
What I didn't know at the time, what a lot of people wouldn't know, is he's got an incredible backstory.
He does.
That has since come to light, and he made us aware of because of Kyle Beach and the circumstances surrounding the Chicago Blackhawks. So what a unique coincidence to have now found out about his background and to have him decide that he wanted to share that story with us.
When he first reached out to my husband, because he's been raising money for minor hockey and giving back, and that's why we spoke to him. But when he first reached out, of course, we didn't know who he was. And my husband did do some research, and through his search, found that Carey, although very involved in hockey in Toronto as a coach and a trainer and consultant with many groups in hockey, also suffered much like Kyle Beach, as we found out. He went through his own period of abuse at the hands of a trainer, equipment manager, I believe. If you recall, Toronto Maple Leaf Gardens, when that was in the news.
Big at the time.
Big at the time. He went through his abuse when he was 11, and it took him quite a few years to be able to discuss it and come out, but he was part of that story at the time. And after Kyle Beach's story broke, he did reach out to us again and asked us if we would like to talk about it. He would be willing to talk a little bit more about his experience with us.
Tara Sloan made the comment when we asked them when Rogers Hometown Hockey was in town, would they be talking about Chicago? And she said, it would be irresponsible not to. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly the line that came to my head when we were offered the opportunity. He came out and said, I would really like, in the climate of this, to be able to talk about it. And I said, boy, it would be pretty irresponsible not to.
Absolutely.
As broadcasters, as people who care about the community like we do, that's what the show's all about, to continue to shine the light on this, to bring it out from the horrible darkness so that it can end, A, the abuse itself, and B, the hiding of it because it's too uncomfortable to talk about. Mm-hmm. To have a gentleman who's so courageous he wants to come out and talk about it, how could we say no? And he'd already been on the podcast. So as far as I think we are both concerned, the next 20 minutes is really important. And what Kyle Beach began again, because he's not the first to come out and speak out.
Nope.
Sheldon Kennedy and the like, and the women's gymnastics team for the United States with Larry.
And Carey Durant himself.
Carey Durant himself. Number of people have come out, but as he'll say in the next 20 minutes, I can't believe it's happening again. But we wanted to know, when you heard Kyle Beach last week and the allegations come out, what was your first thought?
Well, your initial thought is always that, has the world and our communities not changed? It seems that we don't learn from some of the mistakes that happen, and why would this happen, and especially in such a controlled environment like the National Hockey League, where you would think the checks and balances are all there, but obviously they weren't for Kyle Beach and possibly others.
And that has to be frustrating, Carey.
Very frustrating. In the account, you figure what had happened to my older brother and I with Maple Leaf Gardens, and then Sheldon Kennedy, coming out and talking about his experience. You would think that the sport itself, in general, and plus just in general our communities, that we would have more. We would have more checks and balances for stuff like this to prevent this from happening to other people.
Yeah, and when Kyle Beach says he felt, and I'll use the word inspired, to share his story, was because he had heard that other players had been abused, and he felt had he come forward, he could have prevented that. And yet we're sitting here to say, plenty have come forward before. Why does it continue?
Yeah, for him coming forward, I mean, a lot of stuff I've been hearing is, and it kind of frustrates me a bit in regards to Kyle Beach, or any person that's been abused, how they say, we're heroes for coming out. Well, we're not heroes, because we certainly don't feel like that. I always, if anybody wanted to be remembered for something in their life, it would be for something that was good, not for a tragedy like this for all of us. So it's more about, coming out because you want to prevent it, from happening to other people. And I'm sure when Kyle came out, it was his time. I mean, we all have our time. It takes some people longer than others. We make those decisions just based on our feelings and how confident we are that we're not going to be ridiculed by, people in public. And I was literally, a lot of people said a lot of nasty things to me when I was younger, when I was 31. And even being questioned whether it happened to me or not. And that really plays a lot on you mentally, and because you're in this on your own. You don't have help from anybody else. When this happens to you and you bottle it up inside you, you're in it on your own, and you have to face everything on your own until you do come out. And then people do obviously, support you and they want to help you. But I can understand where Kyle was coming from about everything that he had said.
Yeah, Carey Durant joins us. He was on episode 17 of the podcast. A remarkable story of giving back to the community. And when you hear the backstory that he is a survivor of the very same abuse that plagued Kyle Beach, it makes it an even more remarkable story.
It really does. And it's got to, and it has to bring some of that back to you too, Carey. So how are you dealing with this yourself?
Well, it's funny that you ask that, because I think we all have triggers within ourselves and things that remind us, whether it's daily, weekly, monthly, yearly. It's something that never leaves you as a person. It's something that will stay with me for the rest of my life. And sometimes it's really tough when you see stuff like this happening to a young professional hockey player. But it's just not about the NHL. It's about people in our community too. This goes on everywhere. And people are saying, we got to stop this. It's never going to stop, because the people that do this, unfortunately for them, they're born into a sickness that they can't help. And, I just think that we have to have better measures in place to recognize what's going on. And we have to make people feel confident that they can come out and talk to us, that someone's trying to do this to them to prevent it from happening. So for me, when I heard about this, I was like, wow, I can't believe how far we think we've come, and we've gone backwards. Just about same as other stuff too, about racism, about women's rights, and everything. It's sometimes we think we're gaining some traction, we're getting somewhere, then all of a sudden something happens and we revert right back to where we were before.
Mm-hmm. Carey Durant, powerful statements this morning. You talk about when you heard about that. Rogers Hometown Hockey was in our community on the weekend. Ron McLean and Tara Sloan and many others on their panels. John Tortorelli, the coach, I'm sure you heard all of their comments coming out. Are they a fair reflection of where it should be? Did they cover it enough, do you think?
Yeah, I think that Tara Sloan and, Ron McLean did a phenomenal job, especially Tara Sloan. I mean, you can tell, they're professionals just like you and Charity are. And, you have to hold your composure, whether you're on radio or national television. And you could really tell, even Jen Botterill on Hockey Night in Canada.
Yeah.
You could tell it really, really bothered them, because they're people that are in and around that sport all the time, and they're around those people. And I think they spoke very eloquently, and I think they spoke from the heart. And I think that's a great place, because this isn't something mechanical that you can pump out sometimes like it's just another story. They really, really put their heart and soul into that, and they're very concerned not only about NHL players, but everybody else having to go through this kind of a situation.
I'm glad you brought up Jennifer Botterill, because immediately following that, Kelly Rudy was asked to make a comment, and he said he had a story, but he wasn't prepared to share it yet. Is that common?
I think, everyone's worried about, reprisals now, and coming out and saying something. They don't want to say the wrong thing. They don't want to, offend anybody. They don't know whether they can speak out, because the person that they're speaking out for might be upset. There's people out there that this has definitely happened to in the National Hockey League that have not come out and said anything. And I look back at Theo Fleury, and Sheldon Kennedy, there was a lot more people involved in that, and nothing was ever said, because those people just didn't want to have that exposure. And, even with me coming to talk to you both today, this is not about exposure for myself as a person. It's the most farthest thing from that. I just know there's somebody out there right now that is in the situation that I was in, and I do not want them to be, I don't want them to feel like they're going to be ridiculed or they're going to be put down or chastised for coming out, or even to be prevented from another friend that's happening because they're afraid to speak out.
Right. Carey Durant joins us of Trenton. He was on our podcast before and on our radio show in 95.5 Hits FM, raising money locally, which is a remarkable backstory considering for Kyle Beach. He is can I call you a survivor rather than a victim? Is that fair?
I would think that's
a survivor of it.
Yeah.
And thriving, not because of it, despite it. And we thank you for sharing it with us. If you ran the world and if they came to you and said, okay, truly, how does this change? How does it change?
If you run the world, I think there's a lot of things I'd like to change.
Sure,
but in this particular subject, I just think, for us as people, the respect for one another, and I don't know what type of medicine could help anybody. I don't think this is any different than suicide. You don't know. People don't know. You can't read people's minds. You don't know what they're thinking. Why does this trigger someone to be like this? All as I know from my perspective, being abused is one thing. It's the aftermath that comes along after it. And it's the confidence in yourself to be a better person. You do a lot more damage to yourself later. I have some dark roads that I went down as a person. I had to overcome so many things in my life. And when I talk about it, as you can tell, I get a little bit emotional because
absolutely.
It's something that it takes more strength than anything to mentally and physically to get through all this. And then when you get through it and you see somebody else go through it, and I think that's the day that it really hit home with me. It wasn't so much about me. It was more about my older brother when he came out and he told me that it happened to him because I didn't know that it happened to him. And I think that's really, as a person, that's what crushed me, because I knew what my brother went through and he was hiding it also. And I've just started to rebuild my relationship with my older brother. And my older brother, you can tell, I was offered a lot of help from, and assistance from the authorities and from the government to do counseling, which I took up. My older brother's never taken that up. And I think that's a big step for people, is to be able to go and talk to somebody about it. Because remember, when you're young and that trust is broken, you don't trust anybody after that. Mm-hmm. And to open up and to be, that person, it takes a lot. It takes a lot of confidence and courage to come out. And that's where I applaud Kyle, because I know how hard it was for him. Can you imagine? I was just a kid. He's a professional hockey player, and he had to come out, and being a professional hockey player, you're already in that eye of the storm with people in the media, with people that are there. Your eyes are all on you, and now all of a sudden he's got to bring this on to himself. So not only does he have to be a professional hockey player, continue to be that, but he's now got to obviously deal with this. And it's great to see that Robin Leonard and a whole bunch of other people in the NHL, the players, and that they're starting to stand up and speak for him too also.
Yeah, because I was wondering, we thought the accountability was in place. These policies are already there. Chicago chose to set it aside in larger of the more selfish goal, which to me, I don't want to get off topic. Why? Since when is that mutually exclusive? What makes you think because you deal with this, you can't win the Stanley Cup? That's the other thing I don't get.
Yeah.
But
it was really, I'm very disheartened by some of the stuff that's come out, especially about people who said, well, I was in a room, I was in a conversation, we were told about it, but I don't recollect. We all forget lots of things.
Yeah.
That's something that you don't forget. And then to put winning ahead of that is just incredibly crazy. It's something that, that I never ever thought that I would hear. And I'm a sports guy, and all sports guys, we all have egos. Coaches all have egos and that. But I don't think that something like this, I think people were more worried about their reputations and more worried about what people were going to think about them if it all came out, and then call somebody selfish. Well, why are you bringing it up now? There is, like, I've heard that already. Well, why now? Why is he coming out now? Why 11 years later this is happening, or 12 years later it's coming out? Well, you know what? There is no timing for this. There's zero timing for it. You might stew. I mean, I was 11 years old. This didn't come to light until almost like 20 years later for me, where it all came to a head in the court system, and they started talking to us about it. So it may take you a day. It might take you a million days. I don't know. There really is no magic number.
So then finally, I hear from people, and Tara Sloan brought it up. There are going to be people who say, oh, come on, just play the game. Don't you believe that that's what the Predators want? As long as we don't talk about it because it's, quote, too uncomfortable, then it'll always be left in the dark where we like it.
You know what? I totally agree with you. The more we ignore things, the easier it is to deal with them. The hard facts are what came out now. All of a sudden, hey, now we've actually got to talk about this. And I think, what we've talked about before about raising money for youth, talking about other subjects and that, it's some things are hard to talk about for some people. But once you get by that conversation, that first conversation, I think it becomes easier and easier and easier. And that's why I wanted to join you both today, because it was hard for me to talk about it before. But now, at 55 years old, it's much easier. I understand the dynamics around it. I've learned to have, some great coping skills to cope with things that have happened. And I really think I don't want to be selfish. I could go hide right now and never talk about it ever again. I'm not hiding from anybody. I'm right in the forefront of this, and I will be in the forefront of it for the rest of my life, because I owe it to every other kid out there and to every other hockey player, to every other person, to make sure that there's people here that care about you, that support you. You don't need to hide. And you know what? In sports, winning is not the most important thing. Your relationships with people are, and how you build those with great people. And our job is, as adults, and I'll say this as adults, not kids, as adults, it is our responsibility to protect and to nurture kids, and to also help them get through the tough times in their lives.
Absolutely. Nobody would blame you, Carey. You had every right to walk away from hockey and to hate it and to hate everything associated to it. And yet what you have done to come back and not only encourage kids to play hockey, encourage people to get involved, but you're raising money and giving back and doing that along with talking about your experiences and hoping to help in that way as well. It's incredible, Carey. It really is.
Well, I thank you for that. And I think, Mark, you asked about change, and I'll tell you one thing I think that should change is, and this is to both of you, is the one thing I have a really hard time with is the Canadian justice system and how lax it is on, predators and people that do this, whether it's abuse against a child or whether it's abuse against another male or especially another female, that our justice system is way too lax. And secondly, our criminal background check how you go through them in the vulnerable sector check, and that it's so hard to get them for minor hockey. It takes them so long. And, people end up putting up. So remember, all the volunteers that are out there, this is someone's mother and someone's father that's doing this. So, they're trying to look after their home household. They're trying to look after their kids going to hockey, their jobs. And then all of a sudden now one person gets put into this spot in an organization where they're responsible for getting 50 people's background checks in order. Mm-hmm. And that's awfully hard for people to do. And the system does not make it easy for you to get a background check. And again, a background check is like a home inspection. It's great for the time that it's used for. We don't know when there's ongoing people doing things outside there. So really getting to know the people that coach in the organizations, getting to really know the people that you're involved with, I think that's a key thing. We have to pay more attention to that and check out people a lot better than what we've been doing.
Before we let you go, if there's anybody listening who had either has been victimized and is yet to become a survivor and needs the courage to come out, what do they do? What are the first steps? How do they do it?
Well, if there's anybody that is out there that has gone through this situation or is going through this situation or feels that somebody else is going through this situation, as we've talked about before on your show, I have so much respect for the people that I work for within the OPP. Police officers are great people to talk to. They're very understanding. Just going to, your friend, if you don't feel you can talk to your own parents, go talk to your best friend's parents. And even hopefully coaches or people, someone in a position of power that are honest people, you can go and speak to them. Hey, I'll put my phone number on the air with you, 437-361-7825. If anybody wants to call me and speak to me, I'll help them, because I don't ever want anyone ever to feel like they're alone, ever, because they're not. We're here. We are here to help. We are here to make sure that they are safe and that they can trust somebody. And that's, like I said from the top of the show, trust is the biggest issue, trusting people.
Carey Durant, can't thank him enough. Courageous guy.
He doesn't like the term superhero, but I don't know what else to call him. Mm-hmm. The amount of strength it has taken to overcome what he's overcome and to give back to an organization, a sport that has left him with these scars, it's incredible. It really is incredible. And the good that is now coming from him.
And continues to be, because he doesn't owe anybody anything to sit and talk about it and rip the wounds open for him again. But as he kept saying, if I can save one person, then that's why Cal Beach came out. When he heard that somebody got hurt because he didn't come forward, it felt like it happened to him again. Mm-hmm. So that's remarkable. And
what you didn't hear from that conversation, because we spoke to him later, I got quite emotional, and I actually sent him a note later, and I said, I'm sorry. I apologize. I shouldn't, because it's not my story. It's not. But he said to me, he's like, that's the mom coming out in you. And I totally get it. But the conversation continued, but as we both agreed, that emotion, that reaction is so important. And as much as we don't want to go there, and as uncomfortable as the conversation may be, because we even question, how do we go out this? How do we talk to him about it? Because we didn't want to add more to him. We didn't want to trigger anything. We do need to talk about it, though. We do have to find ways to keep the conversation going. And as you said at the beginning, bring it from the dark into the light.
So if you are, and we are by no means counselors of any way, but if you are currently going through it or have his advice, once again, he left his phone number on there. His advice again is OPP, local police. If you're too uncomfortable, talk to your family, talk to your best friends, parents, but start talking. There's a lot more support out there than you think. Yeah. And because we don't...
It's not easy. As he said, it's not.
And Carey doesn't want anybody...
It can be very hard.
We don't want anybody going through it. So a pretty important podcast. Once again, we thank Carey. Mark and Charity Coffee Podcast, a little bit longer today, normally about 15 or 20 minutes, but thank you so much for listening. And I hope it provided some good context for you and some good information for you and your family to discuss. Coming up on the show tomorrow, it's a Friday, so we'll have your dad joke of the week. We will get you ready for the time change. We change back to standard time. Sunday is 25 hours long.
Oh, my goodness.
But the hours in the middle of the night, I don't know if you can really think of it. And then it's going to be dark again for supper on Sunday night. But more about that and plenty more tomorrow morning with Mark and Charity Mornings Coffee Podcast here on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and right here on our social medias. It's Mark and Charity on 95.5 Hits FM in Belleville, Ontario, Canada.